Even though my son always saw me leading a modest life, I never told him about my $40,000 monthly paycheck. He once asked me to supper with his wife's parents, who were traveling from overseas. I made the decision to pretend to be a naive and impoverished mother in order to observe how they would treat a poor person. However, everything changed as soon as I entered that eatery. My daughter-in-law and her family were devastated by what transpired that evening in a way they could never have predicted, and they earned it, I assure you. I'll tell you how I got there. Allow me to introduce myself, because my 35-year-old son Marcus was never informed of his mother's true nature. To him, I was simply another worker, perhaps a secretary, someone regular, nothing exceptional. The lady who left early for work, returned exhausted in the evenings, and prepared meals with whatever was in the refrigerator. I also never corrected him. I never disclosed to him my $40,000 monthly salary, my nearly 2 decades of experience as a senior executive at a multinational firm, where I signed multi-million-dollar contracts and made choices that had an impact on thousands of people. Why would you tell him? I never needed money to display like a trophy on the wall. In the time I grew up in, silence was more valuable than empty words, and dignity was carried within. I therefore protected my truth. For years, I resided in the same small flat. Up until it was worn out, I carried the same leather purse. I became wealthy in silence by cooking at home, saving money, investing it all, and purchasing clothing at bargain stores. Since real strength doesn't yell, real power looks on. And when Marcus contacted me that Tuesday afternoon, I was paying careful attention. His voice sounded tense and odd, as if he had done something wrong as a child. I have a favor for you, Mom. The parents of Simone are coming from abroad. They have never been here before. They're eager to meet you. On Saturday, we're going to a restaurant for dinner. Come, please. I felt uneasy about something in his tone. The voice was not that of a son extending an invitation to his mother. It was the voice of someone pleading to blend in, avoid embarrassment, and leave a positive impression. I quietly said, "Do they know anything about me?" There was no sound. Marcus then stumbled. "I told them you work in an office, that you live alone, that you're simple, that you don't have much." The word simple, as though my whole life could be summed up in that wretched phrase, as like I were a problem for which he had to apologize. I inhaled deeply and profoundly. "I'll be there, all right, Marcus." After hanging up, I surveyed my living room. A little TV, walls devoid of pricey artwork, and worn out, but cozy furniture, nothing to impress anyone. At that point, I made the decision to give my son exactly what they expected to see if he thought I was a poor lady, and his wife's parents were coming to pass judgment. I would act as though I was desperate, ignorant, and broke. A mother just about making it. I wanted to see directly how they handled someone with nothing. I had a suspicion, and I wanted to see their real faces. I had a sneaking suspicion that Simone and her family were the kind of people who judged others based on their wealth, and I always trust my instincts. It was Saturday. I wore the ugliest thing I could find, a shapeless, wrinkled, light gray garment from a thrift store. No jewelry, no watch, and old worn-out shoes. I put my hair back into an untidy ponytail, picked up a faded canvas tote bag, and glanced in the mirror. I appeared to be a lady shattered by life. Forgettable. Excellent. I gave the address and got into a taxi. A posh restaurant in the most upscale area of the city, where each table setting costs more than the average person's monthly wage and the menu doesn't indicate prices. I had an odd feeling as we traveled, a mixture of hope and melancholy. I was anticipating something significant, since I knew it was coming. Sadness because there was still a part of me that hoped I was mistaken. I prayed that they would be considerate, treat me properly, and see past my outdated attire. However, the other side, which had spent 40 years working with corporate sharks, was fully aware of what was in store for me. The taxi came to a stop outside the eatery. Warm lighting, a doorman wearing white gloves, and sophisticated individuals coming in. They were there when I paid, went outside, inhaled deeply, and crossed the threshold. Marcus was standing close to the windows, beside a huge table. He had on sparkling shoes, a white shirt, and a dark suit. He appeared nervous. My daughter Simone was standing next to him. Her flawlessly straight hair fell over her shoulders, and she wore high heels and a fitted cream dress with gold accents. She was not staring at me, yet she still looked flawless. She had a tight, even ashamed look on her face as she looked towards the entrance. Then I noticed Simone's parents waiting like kings on their thrones, already seated at the table. Veronica, the mother, was dressed in a form-fitting emerald green gown, adorned with sequins and gems on her fingers, wrists, and neck. Her dark hair was styled in a sophisticated bun. She was intimidatingly beautiful in that cold, calculating way. Her husband Franklin was standing next to her, wearing a spotless gray suit, a huge watch on his wrist, and a serious look on his face. Both appeared to have been featured in a high-end magazine. I took small, cautious steps in their direction, as though I were terrified. Marcus's expression changed when he saw me first. His gaze expanded. He gave me a thorough examination. I saw him swallow. "You promised to come, Mom." He spoke in an uneasy tone. "Here I am, of course, son." I gave a shy smile. A woman's smile who isn't used to such settings. Simone gave me a brief peck on the cheek, mechanical and frigid. "This is good to see you." The contrary was conveyed by her gaze. In an odd, almost contrite tone, she presented me to her parents. "This is Marcus's mother, Dad, Mom." Veronica looked up, watched me, and I saw everything at once. The condemnation, the contempt, the letdown. She looked at my canvas tote, my worn shoes, and my rumpled outfit. At first, she just held out a hand without saying anything. Weak, swift, and cold. A delight. Franklin followed suit. A phony smile, a feeble handshake, and charm. As though I were a second-class guest, I took the chair at the end of the table, the one that was farthest away from them. Nobody assisted me in getting my chair out. Nobody inquired about my comfort level. The server brought the weighty, tasteful French-written menus. I opened mine while feigning ignorance. With a smile that stopped short of her eyes, Veronica inquired, "Do you need help with the menu?" As she observed me, my voice was little and timid as I said, "Yes, please." "I don't know what these words mean." "Something simple," she remarked, sighing and giving me an order. "Something that doesn't cost too much. We don't want to overdo it." The phrase hung in the air. Franklin nodded. Marcus looked away. Simone played with her napkin. No one said anything, and I just watched. Veronica started talking first about general things, the journey from abroad, how tiring the flight was, how different everything was here. Then she subtly began to talk about money. She mentioned the hotel where they were staying, $1,000 a night. She mentioned the luxury car they had rented, obviously. She mentioned the stores they had visited. "We bought a few things, nothing major, just a few thousand." She spoke, looking at me, expecting a reaction, expecting me to be impressed. I just nodded. "How nice," I said. "That's lovely," she continued. "You know, Ara, we've always been very careful with money. We worked hard. We invested well. Now we have properties in 3 countries. Franklin has major businesses, and I oversee our investments." She smiled a smile of superiority. "And you, what exactly do you do?" Her tone was sweet, but venomous. "I work in an office," I replied, lowering my gaze. "I do a little bit of everything. Paperwork, filing, simple things." Veronica exchanged a look with Franklin. "Ah, I see. Administrative work, that's fine. It's honest. All jobs are dignified, right?" "Of course," I replied. The food arrived. Enormous plates with tiny portions, all decorated like art. Veronica cut her steak with precision. "This costs $80, she said, "but it's worth it. Quality is worth paying for. One can't just eat anything, right?" I nodded. "Of course, you're right." Marcus tried to change the subject, talking about work and some projects. Veronica interrupted him. "Son, does your mother live alone?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, she has a small apartment." Veronica looked at me with feigned pity. "It must be difficult, isn't it? Living alone at your age without much support? And does your salary cover everything?" I felt the trap closing. I barely replied, but I manage. "Wherever possible, I save." "Oh, Elara, you are so brave," Veronica said with a dramatic sigh. "I don't need much. I genuinely respect ladies who face challenges alone. Naturally, though, we always want to give our kids more and a better life. But oh well, everyone gives what they can." There was the subtle but deadly blow. She was telling me I hadn't been enough for my son, that I hadn't given him what he deserved, that I was a poor, insufficient mother. Simone was looking at her plate. Marcus was clenching his fists under the table, and I just smiled. "Yes, you're right. Everyone gives what they can." Veronica continued. "We always made sure Simone had the best. She went to the best schools, traveled the world, learned 4 languages. Now she has an excellent job, earns very well. And when she married Marcus, well, we helped them quite a bit. We gave them money for the down payment on the house. We paid for their honeymoon because that's just who we are. We believe in supporting our children." She looked at me intently. And you, were you able to help Marcus with anything when they got married? The question floated like a sharp knife. Not much, I replied. I gave them what I could. A small gift. Veronica smiled. How sweet. Every detail counts, right? The amount doesn't matter. The intention is what's important. And right then, I felt the rage begin to stir within me. The rage wasn't explosive. It was cold, controlled, like a river under ice. I breathed slowly, kept the timid smile, and let Veronica keep talking because that's what people like her do. They talk, they inflate themselves, they show off. And the more they talk, the more they reveal themselves, the more they expose the emptiness inside. Veronica took a sip of her glass of red, expensive wine, swirling it in her hand as if she were an expert. This wine is from an exclusive region in France. It costs $200 a bottle. But when you know quality, you don't skimp. Do you drink wine, Ara? Only on special occasions, I replied. And usually the cheapest one. I don't understand much about these things. Veronica smiled condescendingly. Franklin and I have visited vineyards in California, South America, and Europe. Oh, don't worry. Not everyone has a trained palate. That comes with experience, with travel, with education. We know a lot. Franklin gave a nod. We enjoy it as a hobby. Simone is also learning. Her taste is good. We passed it on to her. He gave Simone a proud glance. Simone smiled feebly. Regards, Mom. Veronica turned to face me. Do you have any interests, Ara? What do you like to do when you have free time? I gave a shrug. I do ordinary things like cook, watch TV, and take walks in the park. Franklin and Veronica looked at each other again. A silent judgment, a stare full of significance. How beautiful, Veronica remarked. Even simple things can be charming. Of course, though, one always hopes for more, doesn't one? To travel, experience new things, and develop culturally. However, I am aware that not everyone has those chances. I gave a nod. You're correct. Those opportunities are not available to everyone. Dessert was brought by the waiter, bits and pieces of what appeared to be edible art. Veronica placed the most costly order. A cookie-sized piece of cake costs $30. After the first bite, she declared, "This is delicious. On top of it is edible gold. Look at those tiny golden flakes. Only the greatest restaurants provide this particular detail." I finished my dessert. Easier and less expensive. You know, Ara, I think it's important that we talk about something as a family now that we are all here. Veronica looked up and continued in silence. Her face shifted, turning grave and unnaturally maternal. Our son-in-law Marcus is someone we adore. We respect Simone's choice because she loves him, but as parents, we always want the best for our daughter. Marcus stiffened. I don't think this is the right moment, Mom. Veronica held up her hand. Son, let me finish. This is significant. She gave me a look. I know you tried your hardest with Marcus, R. I genuinely admire you for raising him by yourself, even though I know it wasn't easy. However, Marcus is currently in a different phase of his life. He has a spouse. He deserves stability, since he has obligations to Simone. Consistency, I asked quietly. Veronica said, yes. Emotional and financial stability. We have been of great assistance and will remain so. However, we also think it's critical that Marcus isn't burdened needlessly. She spoke in a straightforward tone. I was being called a burden by her, his mother-in-law, his mother, and me. Simone seemed to want to vanish as she stared at her plate. Marcus's jaw was tight. Challenges. I said it again. Veronica let out a sigh. I don't mean to come out as harsh, Laura, but it's understandable that Marcus would worry about you and feel obligated to look after you, given your age and low income. He's a decent son. However, we don't want his marriage to be impacted by that concern. Do you get what I'm saying? Perfectly, I said. Veronica grinned. I'm happy you get it. We wanted to speak with you for that reason. I've considered anything with Franklin. She stopped abruptly. We might provide you with financial support, such as a modest monthly stipend, so that you can live more easily and relieve Marcus of some of his worries. It would be modest, of course. Although we are unable to do miracles, it would be helpful. I kept quiet, observing her, and waited. She went on, and in exchange, we would only ask you to respect Marcus and Simone's space, not to seek them out so much, not to pressure them, to give them the freedom to build their life together without interference. How does it sound? There was the offer, the charity-disguised bribe. They sought to defraud me. They wanted to buy me out of my son's life, in order to avoid being an annoyance and embarrassing their beloved daughter with my lack of wealth. Marcus blew up. That's enough, Mom. You are not required to. He was cut off by Veronica. Calm down, Marcus. We're speaking like grown-up. I picked up my serviette, wiped my lips quietly, took a sip of water and let the silence grow. Your mother understands, right? Everybody was staring at me. Marcus with desperation, Simone with shame, Franklin with haughtiness, and Veronica with expectancy. After that, I said something. My voice sounded strange. It was no longer shy. It was no longer tiny. It was cool and clear and hard. Veronica, that's an intriguing offer. Really extremely kind of you. Veronica grinned triumphantly. I'm happy you think that. I gave a nod. But just to be sure, I have a few inquiries. Veronica blinked. Ask anything you want, of course. I leaned forward a little. What precisely is a small monthly stipend, in your opinion? Veronica paused. Depending on the situation, we were considering spending $500 to $700. I gave a nod. I see. $700 a month so that I can vanish from my son's life. Veronica scowled. Yes, I answered, though I wouldn't describe it that way. That's just how you worded it. She shifted in her seat. I don't want you to think the wrong thing, Era. All we want to do is assist. Naturally, I said. Help. How did you assist with the down payment for the house? What was the cost of that? Veronica gladly nodded. $40,000. Well, $40,000. Oh, $40,000. How kind. What about the honeymoon? $15,000. It was a 3-week journey across Europe, according to Veronica. Amazing. Incredibly so, I answered. You have now invested roughly $55,000 in Marcus and Simone. Veronica grinned. Well, you don't hold back when you adore your kids. I gave a slow nod. You're correct. You don't hold back when you love your kids. But Veronica, tell me something. Did you get anything with all that money and investment? Bewildered, Veronica blinked. Did it earn you respect, for example? I went on. Did it buy you obedience, or did it purchase you true love? The mood shifted. Veronica's smile faded. I'm sorry. My voice grew more acerbic. You've talked about money all night long, including how much you have, how much you spent, and how much items cost. However, you have never once inquired about my well-being, happiness, pains, or need for company. Based solely on your calculations, it appears that I am worth $700 a month. Veronica paused. I didn't. Yes, I did cut her off. You did, indeed. You've been using your wallet to gauge my worth ever since I got here. Veronica, do you know what I found? I found that those who exclusively discuss money are the ones who have the least appreciation for it. Franklin stepped in. I believe that your understanding of my wife's intentions is incorrect. I gave him a direct look. What does she intend to do? To show me sympathy? To make fun of me throughout dinner? To give me alms so I would disappear? Franklin opened his mouth to speak, but remained silent. Marcus had a light complexion. Please, Mom. I gave him a look. Don't, Marcus, please. I'm done keeping quiet. I set the serviette down on the table. I reclined in my seat. My posture had lost its shyness. No more shrinking. I gave Veronica a straight look. She stared at me for a moment before abruptly averting her uncomfortable gaze. She sensed that something had shifted. It was felt by all. You mentioned something really intriguing just now, Veronica. You mentioned that you respect courageous women who face challenges alone. Slowly, Veronica nodded. Indeed, I did. Then allow me to pose a question to you. Have you ever faced challenges by yourself? Have you ever worked without the support of your spouse? Have you ever constructed something on your own without the assistance of your family? Veronica stumbled. I've accomplished things on my own, such as, I was genuinely curious when I inquired, tell me. Veronica straightened her hair. Our investments are overseen by me. I am in charge of properties. I decide on crucial matters for our companies. I gave a nod. Your husband's money was used to build businesses, purchase properties with you, and make investments. Or, am I mistaken? Angry, Franklin stepped in. It's unfair. Like me, my wife puts in a lot of work. Naturally, I gently replied. I have no doubt that she works. However, making money from start is not the same as managing money that already exists. Don't you think there's a difference between managing an empire you inherited and constructing it brick by brick? Veronica pursed her lips. Ara, I'm not sure where you're taking this. Let me clarify, I said. I was 23 years old 40 years ago. I worked as a secretary for a small business. I was paid the minimal wage. I rented a room. I consumed the least expensive food I could locate. And I was all by myself. Marcus gazed at me. I had never explained this to him so thoroughly. I went on. I became pregnant one day. The father vanished. I was abandoned by my family. I had to choose between continuing and giving up. I decided to press on. Up to the very end of my pregnancy, I worked. 2 weeks after Marcus was born, I returned to my job. He was looked for during the day by a neighbor. 12 hours a day was my workday. I stopped and took a sip of water. Nobody said anything. I left my job as a secretary. At night, I studied. I enrolled in classes. At the public library, I studied English. I gained knowledge of administration, finance, and accounting. I became an expert in subjects that I was never taught. By myself, while taking care of a youngster by yourself, all while covering the cost of clothing, food, medicine, and rent. Veronica's gaze was fixed on her dish. Her haughtiness was beginning to give way. Veronica, are you aware of what transpired? Gradually, I advanced from secretary to assistant, assistant to coordinator, coordinator to manager, and manager to director. I took 20 years of non-stop labor and unimaginable sacrifices. However, I succeeded. Are you aware of my current income? I inquired. Veronica gave a headshake. $40K a month. It was completely silent, as though the cosmos had been put on hold. Marcus let his fork fall. Simone's gaze widened. Franklin scowled incredulously, and Veronica's mouth was slightly open as she froze. I said it again. $40,000 a month for over 2 decades. Over my career, that amounts to about $10 million in gross income. No bonuses, no investments, and no company stock are included. Veronica gave a few blinks. I'm not sure I understand. Do you make $40,000 a month? That's correct, I said coolly. I work for a global company as the regional director of operations. I am in charge of 5 nations. I oversee hundreds of millions of dollars worth of budgets. I make choices that have an impact on over 10,000 workers. Without lawyers, you couldn't read the contracts I sign. I also do it daily. Marcus had a light complexion. Why didn't you tell me, Mom? I gave him a gentle glance. Because, son, you didn't have to know. Because I wanted you to value labor rather than money as you grew older. Because I wasn't going to allow money to corrupt you, and I wanted you to grow into a person rather than an inheritance. Why do you live in that small flat? Why do you wear simple clothes? Why don't you drive a luxury car? Simone muttered, and I grinned. Since I don't have to make an impression on anyone, since genuine wealth is not flaunted, because I discovered that the more you have, the less you have to prove it. I gave Veronica a look. I wore this outfit tonight for that reason. I claimed to be impoverished for that reason. I pretended to be a poor, unsophisticated woman because of this. If you believed I had nothing, I wanted to see how you would treat me. I wanted to see who you really were. Veronica, I saw them, and boy did I had a wonderful view of them. Veronica was flushed with humiliation, anger, and disgrace. This is absurd. We would know if you made that much money. Marcus would be aware. Why would he think you're impoverished? I answered, because I let him, because I never discussed my work. Since I have a simple life, I invest the money I earn. I preserve, I multiply. I don't spend it on ostentatious jewelry or dining at fancy places. Franklin's throat was cleansed. Nevertheless, this doesn't alter the reality that you were impolite and misunderstood our intentions. Really. I stared at him intently. When you suggested that I was a burden to Marcus, I misunderstood. When you offered to pay me $700 to vanish from his life, I misunderstood. Every patronizing remark about my appearance, my career, and my life was misconstrued by me. Franklin remained silent. Veronica didn't either. I got to my feet. Everyone gave me a look. Let me tell you something that you have obviously never heard before. Class cannot be purchased with money. Real education cannot be purchased with it. It doesn't purchase empathy. You may have a lot of money, yet you have nothing at all of what really counts. Veronica got to her feet, angry. Do you, too? You are the one who tricked us, lied, and made us look foolish. I said icily, I didn't make you look foolish. You handled that on your own. I just gave you a chance to be yourself, and you did a fantastic job. Simone's eyes were filled with tears. Mom-in-law, I had no idea. I am aware. I cut her off. You were unaware. However, your parents were fully aware of what they were doing. The fact that the poor woman they mocked had more money than they do has left them unsure of how to handle. The fact that they realized they were making fun of me. Veronica shuddered. You don't have any rights. I said, I have every right, as I am the mother of your son, because I'm worthy of being respected. I am a human being, not because of my wealth or my occupation. You forgot something during the entire meal. Marcus got to his feet. Let's go, Mum. Please. I gave him a look. No, son, I have not yet finished. I gave Veronica one final glance. You offered to give me $700 a month. I have a counteroffer for you. If you can show me that you have ever shown kindness to someone who was poor, I'll pay you $1 million right now. Veronica parted her lips, shut them, and remained silent. I said, exactly. You can't since, in your opinion, people are only valuable if they have money. And that's what separates me from you. You simply spend the wealth I created. You buy respect from me. I am a dignified person. You've got bank accounts. I grabbed my old canvas bag. I took out a platinum black credit card. I let it fall to the table before Veronica. This is my business card. Limitless tip generously and cover the cost of the full meal. Think of it as a present from a poor and unsophisticated mother. The card was viewed by Veronica as though it were a venomous snake. My name is inscribed in silver characters on a beautiful black surface. The regional director is Alar Sterling. When she lifted it up, her hand shook a little. She flipped it over, studied it, then turned to face me. That superior gleam was gone from her eyes. There was something new now, something in her terror that I never would have imagined. I don't need your money, she replied in a weak voice. I know, I replied. But I didn't need your pity either, and yet you offered it to me throughout the entire dinner. So take it as a gesture of courtesy or good manners. Something you clearly didn't learn despite all your travels through Europe. Franklin gently hit the table. Enough. This is out of control. You are disrespecting us. Respect, I repeated. How interesting that you use that word now. Where was your respect when your wife asked if my salary was enough to live on? Where was it when she suggested I was a burden to my son? Where was it when she offered to buy me off so I disappear? Franklin clenched his jaw. Veronica just wanted to help. I corrected her. Veronica wanted to control. She wanted to ensure that the poor mother wouldn't ruin her daughter's perfect image. She wanted to eliminate the weak link in the chain. The problem is she chose the wrong link. I looked at Simone. Her head was bowed, her hands in her lap, trembling. Simone, I said softly. She looked up. Tears were streaming down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I cut her off, saying, you knew that my parents don't finish that sentence, but I didn't. You may not have been aware of my wealth, but you were aware of your parents' character. Simone said, I wanted to say something, but they are my parents. I know, I said, and Marcus is my son. You know how they treat people they consider inferior, and you did nothing to stop them. Nevertheless, I allowed him to make his own choices. I allowed him to choose his partner, his future, because that is the way you love. Without control, not with money, not with manipulation. Marcus came closer to me. Mom, forgive me. Please forgive me for never asking, for assuming, for thinking you were. His voice cracked. I hugged him. You don't have to apologize, son. I did what I did for a reason. I wanted you to be independent, to value the right things, not to depend on me financially, to build your own life. But you made me feel like, aha, you lied to us. You had ulterior motives for coming here. You behaved badly. That's accurate. I nodded. I took action. I pretended to be someone I'm not. That is exactly what you do every day. What does that mean? Franklin asked. It means that you hide behind your money, behind your jewels, behind your trips, behind everything you can buy. But inside you are empty. You don't have deep conversations. You don't have real interests. You have nothing to offer beyond a bank account. Veronica gave a dry, bitter laugh. Coming from someone who lied all night, that's hypocrisy. Perhaps, I replied, but my lie exposed the truth, your truth. And now, you can't hide. Now you know that I saw you, that I felt every comment, that I stored every insult disguised as advice, and that I will never forget it. The waiter cautiously approached. Franklin abruptly shook his head and said, Excuse me, would you like anything else? The waiter nodded and left, saying, Just the bill. Veronica slumped back into her chair. She had lost her graceful posture. It was the stance of someone who has recently misplaced something significant. It wasn't money, either. Power was the issue. Ara, she continued, her tone less combative. I don't want our family's connection to be ruined by this. Simone and Marcus are in love. Together, they lead a life. We must not allow me to interrupt her. What should I do? Allow this to derail your plans? Allow this to reveal your true thoughts? Veronica, it's too late for that. The harm has been done. But she insisted that we could fix it. We can make a fresh start. No, I forcefully interrupted her. I know who you are, and you know who I am. Therefore, we can't. and phony grins and hollow apologies cannot erase that truth. You thought you could treat me like garbage, so you did it with joy. Franklin's throat was cleansed. The one who came here lying was you. This is a predicament that you started. You're correct. I gave a nod. I had to know. So I triggered this. I needed to make sure of my suspicions, that you are not decent individuals, that having money doesn't improve you, because you are precisely the type of person who hates others because they don't share your values. Veronica dabbed at a tear. We are not evil individuals, I said. Maybe not. However, there is a significant difference between those two things, and you are undoubtedly not good. The bill was brought back by the waiter and placed in the middle of the table. Nobody touched it. I'm not going to use your card, Veronica stated, glancing at my black card that was still in her hands before turning to face me. We will pay our own bill as we always do. Perfect, I responded. Then keep that card as a souvenir, as a reminder that not everything is as it seems, that the woman you scorned all night has more than you will ever have. And this isn't just about cash. The card was placed on the table by Veronica. I'm not interested in it. Like you, I don't want your moral sermon. I shoved it back in her direction. I have a feeling you'll need it, so keep it nonetheless. People like you never learn. So one day you'll encounter someone who acts less than they actually are, just like me, and you'll repeat the same error. Franklin opened his wallet and produced a number of sparkling, golden credit cards. After selecting one, he wrote it on the check. After taking it, the waiter walked away. During those minutes of waiting, nobody said anything. It was heavy, awkward, and dense with silence. Simone sobbed softly. My hand was held by Marcus. Veronica's gaze was fixed on the wall. Franklin avoided making eye contact by looking at his phone. The waiter came back. Your card was rejected, sir. Franklin suddenly raised his head. How did it get rejected? The waiter said it again. Refused. Do you accept any other payment methods? Franklin flushed. That isn't feasible. The limit on that card is really high. A system error must be the cause. The waiter gave a shrug. If you'd like, I can try again. He was given another card by Franklin. The server departed. Veronica glanced at her husband anxiously. What took place? I'm not sure, said Franklin, annoyed. A bank error must be the cause. For security reasons, they might have frozen the account. It occasionally occurs when traveling. I pretended to understand and nodded. Those things do occur, of course. What a hassle. The waiter came back. I apologize, sir. This one was turned down as well. Franklin got to his feet. This is absurd. I'm currently on the phone with the bank. He bounded out of the eatery. Veronica sat, humiliated and ashamed, muttering, This has never happened to us, she said. Never. What terrible timing, I said impassively. Marcus examined the check. Mom, I can know, I said, cutting him off. I pulled out my wallet, a plain old leather wallet, and said, You are not paying for anything. I took out a second card. It wasn't black. It was composed of hefty metal and was translucent, a card that is owned by fewer than 1% of the global population. I placed it in front of Veronica on the table. She examined it. Her eyes grew wide. She knew what it was. That's a Centurion card. That's right, I said. American Express exclusive invitation, minimum annual spending requirement of $250,000, $5,000 annual fee just for having it, and benefits you can never imagine. Veronica said nothing. The waiter took the card carefully, as if it were something sacred. He returned in less than 2 minutes. Thank you, Miss Sterling. Everything is settled. Would you like the receipt? It's not necessary, I replied. The waiter nodded and left. Veronica continued looking at the space where the card had been. I stood up, took my old wallet, my canvas tote, and looked at Veronica one last time. The dinner was delicious. Thank you for the recommendation of the place, and thank you for showing me exactly who you are. You saved me a lot of time, a lot of energy, and many future disappointments. Veronica finally looked up. Her eyes were red, not from crying, but from contained rage. This doesn't end here, she said, her voice trembling. You can't just humiliate us and walk out as if nothing occurred. Our daughter is named Simone. Our son-in-law's name is Marcus. We shall remain family. You must come see us. You're correct. I grinned. I'll have to see you during family get-togethers, Christmases, and birthdays. I will view you differently now, though. I won't question your opinion of me again. I am already aware. You'll be aware that I am aware of it. You'll have to put up with that. You will think of this night each time you see me and act nice. Franklin went back to the table. He was holding his phone. He had a pallid face. There's a problem with the accounts. he stated. He glanced at the table and said, "A temporary block for security. It will be resolved tomorrow." "Did they pay already?" Veronica asked. "Yes," without turning to face him. Franklin glanced at me and said, "She paid." His ego was crushed. The words, "Thank you," he whispered. It was hardly heard. I said, "You're welcome. Isn't that the purpose of family? To support one another, particularly when someone is in need of a tiny allowance, like $700 or, in this case, $800, which is what this supper cost." Franklin shut his eyes. Veronica's hands were clenched in her lap. Marcus came over. "Let's go. Please, Mom. It's sufficient." I gave him a look. "You're correct. It's sufficient." I looked across at Simone. She continued to weep in private. I said quietly, "Simone." She raised her head. "Your parents' behavior is not your fault. Although no one selects their family, you do have a say in how you behave, treat other people, and raise your own children in the future." Through her tears, Simone nodded. "I apologize," she muttered once again. I told her not to apologize again. Simply learn. Recognize that people are not defined by their wealth, that modesty is not a sign of weakness, that there is no cost in showing others respect. Additionally, teach your kids to look at people's hearts rather than their bank accounts. If you ever have kids. Simone's tears deepened. Marcus gave her a hug. Veronica averted her gaze. Franklin avoided making eye contact as he looked at his phone once more. I made for the door. I walked a few paces, then halted and made one final turn. "One more thing, Veronica." She gave me a look. "Remember when you claimed to be multilingual?" Veronica scowled. "How does that relate to anything?" I said, "Just curious. Of the 4 languages, which one did you learn to be kind in, since it was obviously absent from all of them?" The question took me by surprise, not because of the question itself, but because of the direct way he asked it. "Why do you ask that?" "Because I picked you up from a $1,000 per person restaurant, but you dress like someone who shops at discount stores. You have an old bag, worn out shoes, but you talk like an executive. You move like someone with power. And you paid for my cab with crisp new bills that you pulled out of a wallet that looks 20 years old." "Observant," I commented. "Part of the job," he repeated. "Then, am I?" "It depends on how you define rich," I replied. "If you are talking about money, yes, I have enough, more than enough. If you are talking about happiness, I also have peace, health, a son I love, work I am passionate about. That makes me rich in many ways." He nodded, satisfied. I knew there was something. Truly rich people don't need to prove it. The light changed to green. The taxi moved forward. "And what happened in that restaurant?" he asked. "If it's not too indiscreet." "I pretended to be poor," I replied, "to see how they would treat me." He let out a loud laugh. "Seriously, that is brilliant. And how did they treat you?" "Like trash," I said without emotion. "They humiliated me. They offered me arms. They treated me as if I were invisible, less than human." He stopped laughing. "I'm sorry, that must have hurt a little," I admitted. "But it also confirmed something for me, that I was right about those people, that they weren't worth my time, that they didn't deserve my respect, and now they know it. Now they know who I am, and they will have to live with that shame." The taxi driver whistled softly. "That must have been epic." "It was." I smiled. "It definitely was." We arrived at my building, an older middle-class building, nothing luxurious, nothing impressive, but comfortable, safe, home. The taxi driver parked and looked at the building. "You live here?" "I live here," I confirmed. He shook his head, astonished. "You truly are special. Most people with money move to expensive areas, to buildings with doormen, private security, gyms, and pools. You live like a normal person." "I am a normal person," I replied. "I just have more money than most. But that doesn't make me different. It doesn't make me better. Money is just a tool, not an identity." He smiled. "I wish more people thought that way. The world would be better." I took out my wallet. "How much is it?" $30, he replied. I gave him a $100 bill. "Keep the change, ma'am. This is too much." "It's not," I said. "You listened to me. You gave me perspective. You reminded me that there are still good people. That is worth more than $70. He took the bill carefully. "Thank you. Truly, thank you." "Thank you," I replied. "And take care of that honesty. It's rare. It's valuable. Don't lose it." "I won't," he promised. I got out of the taxi, closed the door. He rolled down the window. "Ma'am, one last thing. Tell me, whatever happened tonight, don't regret it. Don't feel sorry because people like you, the people who speak the truth, even if it hurts, are the ones who change the world. Little by little, one conversation at a time. I smiled. Thank you. I will remember that. The taxi drove away. I stood in front of my building, looking up at my fifth-floor window. The light was off, dark, silent, waiting for me. I entered the building and walked up the stairs. I never used the elevator. I preferred to walk to stay active. I reached my door. I took out my keys, the same keys I had had for 15 years. I opened the door. The apartment was cold, empty. I turned on the light. Everything was in its place. The simple living room, the small kitchen, the dining room with mismatched chairs, the walls without expensive artwork, and I felt at peace because this place was mine, truly mine, not bought to impress, not decorated to show off. Simply a space where I could be myself without masks, without pretensions. I took off my old shoes, took off the wrinkled gray dress, and put on comfortable clothes and old, soft, familiar pajamas. I made myself some tea, sat on the sofa, and turned on the television. News. Nothing interesting. I turned it off. I sat in silence, thinking, processing, feeling, and for the first time in many years, I felt completely free, free from pretending, free from being silent, free from tolerating, free from being less than I was, because that night, I didn't just expose Veronica and Franklin, I also liberated myself from expectations, from judgment, from the need to hide who I was, and that was invaluable, more than any amount in my bank account. My phone vibrated, another message, this time from Marcus. Mom, did you get home safely? I smiled. I quickly replied, yes, son, I got there all right. He immediately responded, I love you. I'm at home resting. I said I love you, too, and closed my eyes. Thank you for everything, for being who you are, for teaching me, for never giving up. A tear ran down my cheek, but it wasn't from sadness. Rather, it was from relief, love, or thanks. Always. I put the phone aside. I drank my tea. I looked around my simple apartment, my sanctuary, my truth, and I smiled, because at the end of the day, it didn't matter how much money I had. It didn't matter how high I had climbed in my career. The only thing that mattered was this moment, this peace, this honesty with myself. I woke up early on Sunday. As always, 40 years of working had trained me to rise with the sun. Even though it was my day off, my body no longer knew how to sleep late. I prepared strong coffee black. I sat by the window with a hot mug in my hands. I watched the city wake up, the vendors opening their stalls, people walking somewhere. Life continued as always, indifferent to personal dramas. My phone started ringing. It was a familiar number. Marcus, I answered. Good morning, son. His voice sounded tired. Mom, I need to talk to you. Did something happen? A lot, he replied. Last night, Simone and I talked for hours. Her parents were there, too. It was intense. I took a sip of coffee. Tell me. Marcus sighed deeply. After you left, I went back to the restaurant. Veronica and Franklin were still there waiting for their cards to work. It was humiliating for them. Simone was devastated, crying, and I was furious, more furious than I have been in years. I waited in silence. He continued. I told them everything I felt during that dinner. I informed them that I was ashamed of them, that they were disrespectful to my mother, that their actions were intolerable, and that I would never put up with it again. What did they say? I inquired. Veronica initially attempted some. She claimed that they had no malicious intent and that their only goals were to keep Simone safe and ensure that my family was secure. Franklin claimed that I was overstating the situation, that the dinner had been typical, and that your response was out of proportion. I gripped the mug tightly. Normal. However, Simone then said something. Marcus went on. She told her parents that she was ashamed to be their daughter at that moment, that they were wrong, that they had been unkind, and that she had witnessed every look, statement, and subtle insult. His voice broke. I grinned a little and said, Mom, I had never seen Simone confront her parents like that. Marcus responded, That's good. It means she's waking up. Veronica became agitated. She began shouting that Simone was unappreciative, that they had given her the best life, that they had sacrificed everything for her, and that she had no right to criticize them. Franklin supported her. He said that you were manipulating us and that you had orchestrated everything to cast them in a negative light. I laughed a little dryly. It's my fault, of course. Marcus claimed that's what enraged them the most. I informed them that they were correct and that everything was planned, but they fell into the trap since that's just the way they are, because they truly mistreat those they view as inferior, that all you did was give them a chance to showcase themselves, and they did it flawlessly. I muttered, "Well said. Regards. You taught me." There was no sound. Then Marcus continued, "Mom, I need you to know something. Last night, I made a decision. Simone and I are going to set boundaries with her parents. We are not going to cut off the relationship, but we are going to set clear rules. No comments about money, no comparisons, no attempts to control our lives. And if they can't respect that, then they will have to accept the consequences." "And did they accept?" I asked. "No," he replied. "They left furious. They said we were ungrateful, that we would regret it someday, that when we needed help, they wouldn't be there. Franklin said he was going to reconsider his will. Veronica said Simone had chosen the wrong family." I shook my head. "Emotional blackmail, the last resort of people without arguments." "Exactly," Marcus said. "But it didn't work." Simone stood firm. "I did, too." They left the restaurant without saying goodbye, without looking back. And honestly, Mom, I felt relief, as if a huge weight had been lifted off me. "That's because it was," I told him, "you lifted the weight of living under their expectations, under their control." "Thank you, Mum, for doing what you did last night," Marcus remarked in a tearful voice. "Now you can build your life however you want, not as they dictate." I am aware that it was challenging. We had to witness it, even though I knew it was uncomfortable. I had to find out their true identities. Simone also needed to realize that there was a more genuine and honest way of living. "Son, you're welcome. All I did was what I thought was right." Marcus added, "There's something else. Simone would like to visit you. She wishes to provide an in-person apology. She wishes to speak with you, as a lady attempting to learn, not as a daughter-in-law trying to seem nice. What are your thoughts?" I paused to reflect. "Let her know that she is welcome, but not today. Allow her a few days to reflect and thoroughly consider her words. Hasty apologies are meaningless. They are real, the ones that take time." Marcus said, "I'll tell her." Another inquiry. "Mom, after all of this, how are you doing? What are your feelings?" I peered out the window. The sun had now fully risen. Officially, the day had begun. "I'm fine," I answered. "Better than average. I've finally spoken what I needed to say, and I have no regrets. Therefore, I'm at peace." Marcus remarked, "I'm happy to hear that. I cherish you. I also adore you. Take a nap. I'll see you shortly." I got up, finished my coffee, and hung up the phone. I made the decision to do something I hadn't done for a while. Take a leisurely stroll without hurrying, just strolling and reflecting. I wore used trainers, a basic blouse and faded jeans, since I was comfy. After grabbing my keys, I left. Families were walking down the streets, kids were running, couples were holding hands, and food sellers were selling their wares. The air was heavy with the aroma of freshly baked bread. As I strolled through the local park and observed folks walking by from a bench, I came to a realization. It's likely that the majority of these individuals have little money. They battled daily, worked hard, and made do with what they had. However, they grinned, gave each other hugs, and relished the occasion. Then I remembered Veronica and Franklin, with their wealth, their homes, their vacations, and their diamonds. Were they truly content, or were they simply preoccupied with proving something, attempting to buy value, respect, and affection, or seeking to fill a gap with worldly possessions, items that are impossible to purchase? "Good morning," a smiling elderly woman remarked as she took a seat beside me. I said, "Good morning," she said. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" "Very beautiful," I said with a nod. She began feeding the pigeons food from her bag. "Every Sunday I come here," she added. "This is my peaceful moment before the week becomes hectic once more." "I know that," I answered. "I also needed some quiet time." "Difficult week?" she inquired. I said something along those lines. She nodded thoughtfully. "More like a challenging evening. One night can sometimes make all the difference." I muttered, "You're right. Can I offer you some uninvited counsel?" "Proceed." I grinned. She gestured at the pigeons. "Take a look at those birds. They all eat the same bread, regardless of their size, whether they have beautiful or messy feathers. They all occupy the same area. None of them believes they are superior to the others." I said, "That's a nice metaphor." "That isn't a metaphor," she said. "It's the reality. The only creatures that create fictitious hierarchies that use external objects to gauge worth are humans. That's not what pigeons do. They simply exist. They simply are. We ought to take note of them." I grinned widely. "You're absolutely correct. I ought to teach some of my acquaintances," she chuckled. "I don't teach classes at my age, darling. I simply watch and report what I see." However, most individuals don't pay attention. They are too preoccupied with running, shopping, and competing to remember that we all end up at the same spot. Regardless of whether we have wealth, jewels, or real estate, we all eventually become dust. How philosophical, I said. How realistic, she said. I am 82 years old. I've witnessed it all. I can also share with you something. It was never enough. And those who had the most were the most wretched people I ever encountered. More was always what they desired. They were always in competition. Every time, they made comparisons. And they passed away without having experienced true life, true love, or true being. I felt as though she had hit on something I already knew but hadn't expressed. I told her I was grateful that she shared that. She gave me a hand pat. You're really welcome, kid. And never forget that it makes no difference how much you have or don't. How you treat other people is what counts, since that's what's left. What transcends is that's the only valuable inheritance. She got up slowly, waved goodbye, and put her empty bag away. Enjoy a lovely Sunday. You too, I said. I saw her leave, a petite woman, stooped with age, dressed in shabby clothes and ancient shoes, yet wiser than all the Franklins and Veronicas in the world put together. And I was appreciative. I'm thankful for the experience, the reminder, the power, and the truth. After spending some more time on the bench reflecting, feeling, and analyzing everything that had transpired, I reached a conclusion. I have no regrets, no action, no words, because everything I accomplished the night before was essential. It was freeing, it was truthful, and being honest is always the best course of action, even if it causes pain. Simone knocked on my door after 3 days. 3 days of introspection, processing, and quiet. That Wednesday afternoon, I recognized the person when I heard the bell ring. I pulled the door open. She was wearing jeans and a simple top, no jewelry, no heels, and no makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. Unlike the woman I had seen in the cafe, she appeared genuine and vulnerable. Mother-in-law, she uttered softly. I moved aside and asked, "May I come in?" "Proceed." She walked in gently, scanning my flat with fresh eyes. The basic living room, the worn-out furnishings, and the plain, unadorned walls. I gestured for her to sit on the sofa. I sat across from her and waited for her to find the right words without putting any pressure on her. When she eventually said, "I don't know where to start," when I said, "Start where you feel ready," she inhaled deeply. I didn't just come to apologize verbally. I came to explain why I had been silent for so long and why my parents are the way they are. Silently, I listened. Simone went on, her voice quivering. My parents worked in the fields since they were young and lived in poverty in a little town. Abroad without running water or electricity, they witnessed the early deaths of their own parents as a result of a lack of funds and medication. They were left without food. They were harmed, and they made a self-promise to never again live in poverty. To get out of there, they would stop at nothing. I gave a nod. I get it. That clarifies a great deal. Simone went on. They worked like animals. Every penny was preserved. They came in search of better chances. Franklin started his company from the ground up, literally from the beginning. They also never forgot what it was like to be without money once they began making it. They discuss it a lot because of this. They use that standard to gauge everything because of this. For them, having money is essential to their survival. It signifies safety. It entails never returning to that gloomy spot. "Sino, it makes sense," Simone agreed when I remarked, "Trauma does strange things to people. However, that doesn't justify the way they handled you. I am aware. I also want you to know that I witnessed everything, every remark, every glance, every slight, and since I've been doing that my entire life, I said nothing. They taught me that it was treason to disagree with them, so I remained mute, accepted, and allowed them to rule everything. It was unappreciative. And now I know I was mistaken," she said in response to my question. "That control is not the same as love. Blind obedience is not what that family is. That even though I love them, I may not agree with them. Marcus made it easier for me to see. I saw it thanks to you. It was like a blindfold had been removed from my eyes. When you told them everything and disclosed yourself that evening at the restaurant," wiping her tears, Simone did so. "I've always sensed a problem. I always thought their measurements of individuals were off. But I told myself it was because I was too sensitive and didn't get the world. However, you demonstrated to me that there is another way to live, a method in which sincerity is riches, humility is strength, and money does not determine your value." I sipped some water. "I wasn't here that evening to transform you, Simone. I came to know who I was dealing with and to defend myself. I understand. she answered, and I'm grateful for it since I was saved by your frankness. It prevented me from becoming a mother, from continuing that cycle, and from instilling in my future offspring the idea that a person's worth is determined by their possessions. That is not what I desire. That's not who I want to be. What about your parents? I inquired. After all this, how are they doing? Simone let out a sigh, angry, wounded, and ashamed. I haven't heard from Veronica in 3 days. I received a message from Franklin stating that I had let him down, that I had put strangers above my own family, that one day I would regret it. She hesitated. You know what's odd, too? I'm not sorry. I feel liberated. That's excellent. It indicates that you made the right choice, I said. Simone gave a nod. Marcus and I established limits. We assured them that if they respected us, they could be a part of our lives, if they honor our choices. If they give up using money or emotional coercion to manipulate us, they will have to accept a distant relationship if they are unable to accomplish it. What was their reaction to that? I inquired. Simone answered poorly. They had given up everything for me, according to Veronica, and we were unappreciative. As if our affection for them hinged on their wealth, Franklin threatened to disinherit me and cut off any financial assistance. At that point, I came to understand that they genuinely thought their worth is in their pocketbook. It's sad, I said. Simone concurred. Very sad, because they enjoy nothing and have they simply gather, compete, and flaunt themselves. However, they never pause to consider whether they are content, at peace, or have genuine relationships with others. They are empty on the inside, yet they feel triumphant when they count their properties. After a brief period of silence, she turned to face me. I have a request for you, mother-in-law. Tell me. I would like to gain knowledge from you. I want you to show me how to be strong without being cruel, how to live with dignity, how to be wealthy without having to prove it, and how to maintain calm in the face of chaos. Because I noticed something about you that night that I had never noticed in my parents. I observed class. I witnessed true power. I observed a woman who could be heard without shouting. I gave a gentle smile. I can't teach you that, Simone. Living, making errors, falling, and getting back up are all ways to learn that. I can just share my story and let you know that it's not an easy journey. People who don't comprehend why you live differently will criticize and judge you. However, you will find peace if you remain loyal to yourself and live by your principles. Furthermore, that serenity is more valuable than any quantity of money. Simone said, I want to try. I want to improve myself, not just for Marcus. Because I deserve to live free from the continual pressure to do well, the need to impress others, and the dread of not being good enough. I told her to do it. Don't do everything at once, though. Work on it gradually. Begin by examining your routines, purchases, and driving forces. Before making any decisions, ask yourself, is this for other people or for me? Is this all for show, or does it bring me peace? Simone nodded and made notes in her head. Do you believe my parents will ever change? I gave her an honest look. I'm not sure. They don't think they have an issue, which is necessary for change. They think the world is in error, that victims are not thankful for their situation, until they realize that there is no way to change. However, you are changeable. The cycle can be broken. I will, she said, with Marcus's assistance. And I hope with your help as well. I said, you don't need my advice. All you need is your own sense of direction. That voice that informs you of right and wrong. For years, you kept that voice quiet in order to appease your parents. Pay attention to it. Have faith. Do as you are told. Simone dabbed at the remaining tears. I'm grateful for everything, mother-in-law, for being honest, for being patient, and for never giving up on us. I stated there was nothing to be grateful for. Just make me one promise. Teach your kids that people are valuable, not just things. Instill in them kindness, humility, and empathy. Things that are worth everything, yet don't cost money. I swear, Simone stated firmly. With all my heart, I swear. We gave each other hugs. A genuine, heartfelt embrace. Just two women communicating as real beings. No masks, no acting. An hour later, Simone walked out feeling lighter, more liberated, and full of hope. I shut the door after her. This was sufficient. So I returned to my sofa, surveyed my modest flat, and grinned. It was all about this, an open environment, a genuine existence, and genuine connections. I didn't require any more. I was never in need of more. My phone rang. Marcus had left a message. Simone informed me about her visit. Mom, I appreciate you accepting her, paying attention to her, and giving her an opportunity. There are no words to describe how much I love you. I placed the phone down and said simply, I love you, too, son. Always. I took a seat by the window. I saw the sky turn pink and orange as the sun sank. And I realized something basic at that very instant. Having a lot of money is not a sign of true riches. It's about how much you appreciate what you have, how at ease you are, how many sincere people are around you, and how often you can look in the mirror and feel good about yourself. Franklin and Veronica had millions. However, I had this calmness, this genuineness, and this unadulterated love for my son. I became far wealthier than them as a result. I never again pretended to be impoverished. I didn't have to. I had acquired the necessary knowledge. I had liberated what I needed to liberate and seen what I needed to see. Franklin and Veronica remained the same people. They were wealthy but impoverished. However, that was no longer an issue for me. I had told it as it was. I had established my limits. I had guarded mine tranquilly. I also didn't have to act like someone I wasn't for the first time in a long time. I was just a mother, a woman, an executive, a fighter, a survivor, and wealthy in all the ways that really counted. And that was more than sufficient. It was all of it. Did you enjoy the narrative? What city are you listening from? By the way, in the comments, let's meet. If you like the tale, please email me a big thank you so I may continue to share stories like this one. I sincerely appreciate your kind support. I'm eager to hear your thoughts on the narrative. 2 brand new life stories that I strongly suggest are displayed on the screen. My channel has a ton more content. Remember to subscribe. With love and respect, I'll see you in the next life narrative.